Would you please remain standing and join me in a litany of the past, the present, and the future? Eternal and loving God, today we give thanks to you for your goodness through all the years of worship and witness in this community, for your grace in calling us to be your people, for your love revealed to us in Christ your Son, for your gift of the Spirit and the joy of salvation. We give you thanks, O God. For those who established this congregation, for their faith and vision, for their gifts and their abilities, we give you thanks, O God. For all who have been members of this congregation, for those who have given freely of their time and money, for those whose wisdom guided our congregation, we give you thanks, O God. For all who have preached and taught here, for all who confessed here that Jesus is Lord, for all who today lead in worship, witness, and service, we give you thanks, O God. Okay, and this time of service, and let's think of all who've gone before, and as a 60-year member of this church, I can remember very many people, so let's take a moment of silence, please. For the legacy of 162 years of ministry, for the vision of those who dreamed of this new space of worship, for the various team members who gave years of their time, for the grandeur of this place that lifts our spirits to you, O God, for our growing positive impact in our community, we give you thanks, O God. As we lean into the possibilities and challenges before us, lead us to be faithful, generous, compassionate, and bold in love, to offer our prayers, our presence, our gifts, our service, and our witness, so that generations to come may encounter you, O God, in this place. We give you thanks, O God.
We needed the rain, but didn't quite need the storm that ensued with it. And as I've told folks here, God and I have had a more than 40-year joke on me whenever there's an important event, and weather seems to go totally crazy, so it's my fault. Welcome to this exciting event, including worship, witness, fellowship, food, and conversation. Dozens of people have worked for months to prepare for this launch of our Phase 2 capital campaign. Let me highlight a few things before we continue with worship. I wish to recognize two special guests today, Dr. Stephen Ray and his wife Holly. Dr. Ray shepherded the congregation through the first capital campaign and the construction of this marvelous facility. Items were brought in during our processional hymn that represent the symbols of our faith and things that represent our historical and present memory. Facing you on the front of the altar table are a number of artifacts unearthed at the Patty's Chapel Church site. They're on the board on the altar table, and I encourage you to examine those, and we'll leave that there for tomorrow morning. The flag of our Boy Scout troop is posted as a sign of the long history of this congregation, supporting Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and Cub Scouts. The Bible, a pitcher used in baptism, and a chalice and paten for communion represent the most important core values of us as United Methodist Christians. We will sing, hear historical, present, and future witnesses about the significance of this congregation in the community and the unfolding opportunities this new worship and gathering space mean for us and our community. Hopefully you picked up a pledge card on the outside table in the gathering place as you entered today, but with all the chaos with the storm, you may not have, but there's a good supply on that table, and there's another stack as you leave to go to the fellowship hall. We will follow the pattern that you set in the first capital campaign. The first step is a sacrificial first fruits one-time offering. The second is a commitment to a 3-year pledge campaign that will commence officially on January the 1st, 2020, and going until December the 31st, 2022. The special cherry box is where you can place either or both of these items. And we want you to prayerfully consider in the coming weeks your response, so you have until the first Sunday of November to make your commitments. However, that does not preclude you responding earlier. The box will be in worship each Sunday through November, early November, and during the week it will be in the administrative assistant's office. And you can come by and those will be placed in there. We also know that some folks will need to wait closer to the end of the year to determine how you can respond. That's fine. For the first fruits gift, several families have committed to match dollar for dollar the rest of these single gifts. And at the end of my witness, I will announce the current amount of matching commitments. We will be tracking these items and will give weekly updates on the first fruit gifts and the 3-year pledges. When this service is completed, you're invited to join us in the fellowship hall for food, fellowship, and conversation. Members of the Debt Reduction Task Force will be at each table to answer any questions you may have or to discuss further some of the details and share their own witness. Again, thank you for your presence and for your generous abundance. Let us continue to worship God.
I guess, as you know, I'm Ann Bell Tate. I have been in this church since I was about 3 weeks old, or that's what my mother told me. I was christened shortly after that. I joined the church, I guess, when I was about 12 years old when I went through confirmation. I think I'm about the next to the longest member of the church. Kenneth Youngblood tells me he's possibly the longest and the oldest. And he joined the church when he was about 12 years old. My mother was a Ward, and she married a Bell. She was born in 1903, and my father was born in 1891. Her family moved here from Edneyville to Naples when their house burned, and she started to go in church here. So she told me many stories about the members and how they would have to do everything. They sang in the choir, they cleaned the church, they taught Sunday school, they even stoked the fires or anything else that needed to be done. Things have changed, and for the better. We have a great staff. Our music is wonderful, and Jan gives us a concert every Sunday. And my grandparents were buried at Pettis Chapel, and I think that dates back to about 1856. I can remember some of the people, just like Bobby says, that's the backbone of our church. The Sales, the Youngbloods, Bakels, Cunninghams, Lances, and many, many more. I guess I'm a Methodist through and through because I never thought about going to another church. I sure have seen lots of changes. I can remember when we built the annex, which is the sales room now, but it was a lot larger then. I remember when we had the capital campaign for the education wing, and then we bought the fellowship hall from the Fletcher Women's Club. And now we have this beautiful sanctuary, not only for us to enjoy, but for the generations to come. So let's see if we can't match some funds tonight. Oh, and by the way, today is our anniversary. 56 years. We were married in this church, and now there's 3 generations of us, Karen Tate Franklin and Zoe Franklin.
Hi, for those of you that don't know me, my name's John Justice. And I too have been a lifelong member of the church. And it brings me back to what Ann was talking about was change. Change is always hard, and I know some people, especially some of our other preachers, might be shocked that I wasn't for this big change when we came, because leaving that beautiful sanctuary with those beautiful windows, it just wouldn't be the same coming to church. But then I got to thinking, and I was reading over some of the history of the church, and they were talking about moving from Fletcher, from over at Patty's Chapel to Fletcher. And it wasn't just for us as getting a car and turn left or turn right. They had to actually hitch up the horses to go to church on Sunday that day. So it was a big difference for them. And for them to go from that one schoolroom building to this beautiful sanctuary we have over here got me to thinking, well, change is good. It's hard, but it's good, because look at what beautiful things we have now. We don't have to just rely on our sanctuary and the things that we've done and the things that we built up. I can't imagine going one day by this church without seeing a parking lot full of cars. And there's not a lot of churches that you can see that. And that's one thing that change is helping us with by expanding our ministries to many different things that we weren't able to get to and do things before. Now we can. And so that's one thing we want to continue on with, and making sure that we're able to continue on with expanding our ministries, thinking from the days of this little pump organ here that was over at Patty's Chapel so many years ago, to some of this grand piano that we have here now, So change I found out wasn't always a bad thing. So, and I know my stories aren't quite as elegant as Bobby Caldwell's, because she can always tell a good story. But I can make up in quantity, but I won't do that today. So I just want us to remember that we are truly blessed to have what we have now. Thank you.
Look around, look Hello, my name is Kevin Marsh, and my wife and I have not been members of this church since we were 3 years old, but we're very excited about being here. You know, my dad and mom were raised Baptist. My dad decided after college he was going to seminary and became an Episcopal priest, so I was raised an Episcopalian. And then I met my wife, Sue, in the 8th grade, and she was a Quaker. And I had only read about Quakers in the history books, so it was interesting to learn a little bit about her religion. So we did get married in the Episcopal church, and then she decided there was just a little too much pomp and circumstance for her. So we started looking for other churches, and we found the Methodist church, and we've been Methodist since I guess I was 20 or 21 years old. So a little over 40 years, and we've been Methodist since then, and really enjoyed it. We moved up to this area about 10 years ago, and looked for a lot of churches, and we found this one. My wife came by during the day and met the folks that were here at the church and gave her a tour, and she said, I think this is a place we'd really like to go. So we came the next Sunday, and we tried not to miss a Sunday since then because it was a great place. People took us in. The level of excitement and commitment and just being able to see God's work in action. You can see it here. I mean, it's done here every day of the week, and we couldn't be happier about being here. So I drew the short straw. I got to go through the numbers today. But I wasn't blessed with a lot of individual talents in life. I tried being a drummer, wanted to be a race car driver, and some other different things. But I found out I could do numbers, and I made a career doing numbers. I spent my life as an accountant and doing financial work, so I love working with the numbers. I've done that at just about every church I've been in, so I enjoy doing this. So you look for those sick people that like doing numbers, well, that's me. But I can't do some other things, but I can do numbers. And so I had the honor of working on the Capital Campaign Committee, and then I was invited to serve on the Building Committee, and now I've been on the Debt Reduction Committee. So I want to share with you some of the numbers, and my goal is always to take the mystery away from the numbers. I know they can get detailed, and I can get as detailed as you want to, and I could confuse you if I wanted to, but that's not what I want to do. I want to try to make this simple and straightforward so that you can understand it and understand what we're trying to do and what the benefits of that will be and how truly exciting that is. But I have to say first, when I say I'm excited to be here today, I really mean that, because when I had the church conference to make the decision on approving the mortgage loan for the church, I was supposed to do that. And then I got sent out of town unexpectedly at work, and I couldn't change that. So I called Stephen. I said, Stephen, we got to figure this out. I got to give this presentation. So we finally figured out that I could call him on my iPhone or call him on his iPhone, and he could plug that into the speaker system at church and give the presentation. So I gave the presentation from a hotel room in Florida. And so if you don't know who I am, I was the one that gave the mystery presentation. So I'm really glad to be here in person today. So I want to talk about the facts about our mortgage, what our plans are to accelerate the reduction of that, and the tremendously positive impact that will have on us if we accomplish our goal. So we'll go to the next slide. Christina, go one more. Okay. Just some new sanctuary facts, very simply. The cost of this building, the new program, was about $2.8 million. And we had contributions from our capital campaign. I believe it was a little over $1.4 million. Then we had church funds of about $200,000 that we used to put into the construction, which left us with a balance, taking that $2.8 million, less than $1.6 million, that we needed $1.2 million from a mortgage loan to get the financing done on the church. And when you look at that, I mean, that's phenomenal. I mean, we raised $1.6 million. I know I was on the Capital Campaign Committee, and the consultant we had hired to work with us said, well, we think you can get $800,000 to $1 million tops. Well, we well exceeded that, and it was exciting to watch all of that come in, because this is something I believe the congregation really wanted, and we were able to accomplish that. So we raised almost 60% ourselves, but I thought it was really inspiring to me. I think every church I've served in, we've had some sort of capital campaign or some fundraising activity that's taken place, and this one was truly the most successful I've ever been associated with, and it was really exciting to see that come together. All right, let's go to the next slide. So a little bit on the mortgage loan. I got to give a pitch to my friends at First Citizens Bank. I've done a lot of banking with First Citizens over the years, and I know the people that run the bank really like to make commitments to churches. They've got a special place for church loans being made, so we started looking for places to go. I definitely wanted to have them on the list. So we went to 5 different financial institutions. We also talked to United Methodist Foundation, but the best deal we got was from First Citizens. They gave us $1.2 million for the loan at a fixed interest rate of 3.95%, which is pretty doggone good for a loan for a commercial facility like this, and a church especially. The payments on that loan are based on a 20-year repayment period, so they calculated the payments assuming it was going to be paid off over a 20-year period. So the monthly payment is $7,384. That's about $89,000 a year for an annual amount. But the balance of the loan is due at the end of 5 years on April 1st, 2023, and that's not an April Fool's joke. They really mean that. We got to show up and do something on April 1st, 2023. That's what they call a balloon payment. It's a very common structure in the industry. People usually don't like to make a fixed commitment longer than 5 years for a rate that low, but we felt like that was the right thing for us to do, and that's why we took that loan. So if we just keep paying everything like we are now, pay the $7,384 a month until April 1st, 2023, the balance on the loan is going to be just under $1 million, about $999,000, if we don't do anything. So what happens when the loan is due? We'll go to the next slide here. Have a couple options here, several options. One, we can pay off the remaining balance. And if someone wants to commit to that today, I'll come get you and usher you right up here, help you put that pledge in the box. But I know everybody's going to want to participate in that. Or two, we can refinance the balance at the end of the 5-year period. It doesn't mean the world's coming to an end. Church has got great credit. We had no debt, and until we took the debt on from the mortgage. You know, based on our assets and our income, we're in very good financial condition, and we certainly could get another loan. Don't know what the interest rates might be at that time, but I suspect it would be similarly structured to what we got today. We'd have to wait and see what that would be. Or the third option is we can pay down what we can between now and the time that loan comes due in 5 years, and then refinance whatever is left over. So what can we do today? What options do we have today? And really that's pretty simple. Number one, we can continue making the regular monthly payments until April 1, 2023. We'll have a balance of about $999,000. Or we can continue making those regular monthly mortgage payments, and we can start a program where we begin to pay down that debt as additional funds come in, so we can reduce that as much as we can. And that's why the Debt Reduction Campaign Committee selected option 2, and we've entered into this campaign because we believe we can make some aggressive steps to pay that down and really minimize the cost of the church over the long run and put us in a better financial position. So Randy talked about it. Let's go to the next slide. The 2 phases we've got, the impact of additional mortgage debt payments. There's the first fruits giving and the debt reduction campaign commitments. Now the first fruits giving, our goal is to raise $300,000 between now and November 3rd, and the first fruits gifts we're going to be putting in the box that Randy described. Again, that goal is $300,000. That's a one-time commitment that people would give today. So we'd know what we'd have up front, and then we would take that money at the end of the year, whatever we collected, and pay that down on the mortgage loan and reduce it. If we collected $300,000, we'll reduce it by $300,000. If we collect $400,000, we'll reduce it by $400,000 because we got the option to go back to the bank on an annual basis and refinance the loan and restructure if we want to, or we can continue making the same payments. We'll be paying down more even though we paid down the money from the first fruits giving. The second step would be solicit contributions that would be paid over a 3-year period. That's what Randy was talking about, that starts on January 1 of 2020 and goes through December 31 of 2022. And at the end of each of those 3 years, we'd take whatever we have collected and pay down that money on the mortgage loan and continue to reduce that loan before we get to April 1, 2023 when the loan comes due. And our goal there would be to have $100,000 come in on average for each of the 3 years. If we did that, that would give us $600,000 in total we would have paid down on an outstanding balance before April 1 of 2023. That's a $600,000 reduction, and I'm going to show you how beneficial that would be to us over the long run. Put up the next slide. A lot of stuff on here, but I'm going to focus you on a couple of blocks I want you to see. What I've got is the 2 options. The blue bars are option 1. That's if we don't do anything. We just keep making our regular monthly payments as we're doing now. and what would happen to the balance of the loan. April 2020, this first year coming up will be our second year, would have $1,140,000 outstanding on the loan. So go all the way to the right, to that blue bar on the right, April 2023, the balance would be $999,000. That's the number I've been talking about if we just don't do anything. That's where we'd be at the end of the 5-year period. But go back to the left and look at April 2020, which would be where the balance would be if we collected $300,000 in first fruits giving and paid that down at the end of the year. So when we get to April 2020, that number's about $838,000. And yes, that's more than $300,000 in the other number, but that's because you continue to make some principal payments in your regular monthly payments. So that's going to keep coming down, but just not the large blocks you would pay down with the additional giving. But go all the way to the right. If we collected $300,000 in first fruits giving, and then we paid down $100,000 a year over the next 3 years, when that loan comes due in April of 2023, it'd be $347,000 left out of $1.2 million. And I wrote me a note on my slide here, and it says, wow. That's a huge difference. I mean, that would just be phenomenal if we did that and give us all kinds of financial flexibility. Let's go to the next slide. We'll hit that a little bit harder and just put those two bars next to each other. $99,000 compared to $347,000. That's a reduction of $652,000 before the first loan comes due. That would just be huge. That would be tremendous for us. And I went back and calculated, that's a 70% reduction from what the balance is today. So we can go from where we are today, a little over $1 million, down to the 347 and reduce it by 70%. That would just be phenomenal, and hope we can do that. So the benefits of that over the long term would save significant interest expense between now and April 1st of 2023, about $54,190. And if you look at it compared to what we would pay if we left everything in place to the end of the 5th year, and then we refinanced the loan in the same basis that would take us out another 20-year period, we would save $268,000 in interest. So these numbers really add up. Once you start making the debt payments go down, the interest savings would really accumulate. The reduction of the future mortgage payments due to the aggressive debt reductions in terms of what we have to pay on a monthly basis. If we took that $347 at the end of the 5th year, April 1, 2023, and we refinanced that just like we did the original loan, 5-year period, 20-year amortization of those payments, the payments would drop from $7,384 to $2,096. And that's additional money we've got to spend on other programs of the church. I know when I worked in church finance over the years, I always like to look, what are we spending on ourselves and our facilities versus what are we spending on missions and outreach to serve the people of the community and the people in our state that we're trying to reach. That would give you a lot more money. That'd be $89,000 a year $89,000 a year versus $25,000 a year in monthly mortgage payments if we just refinanced it. Now, knowing this church and knowing my gut feel is when we get to 2023, April 1st, and we only owe $347,000, they're going to people step up, and we'll never have to refinance that. That's my belief. I'm not asking for that today, but I've been here 9 years, and I've seen what the people of this church do, not just people that are here, but new people that are coming in, and we got more people coming in every year. We haven't asked for any money since we started the mortgage payments, and we've had more money come in from people that said, I want this to pay the mortgage payment than the mortgage payments have been this year. So we're already doing more than what we have to do. And I think that's a great sign of the life of the church, the commitment of the church, and what we could really do. So I know I was a little long-winded, but I wanted to try to get through the numbers so there wouldn't be a mystery, because this is simply the foundation of what we're trying to do. We're just trying to pay down the debt so we can reduce the interest, reduce the principal, and reduce the monthly mortgage payments we can pay over the long term, which gives us more money to spend on missions and outreach and all the other programs that our church it's really been done for. So thank you for your patience.
Bashaw. And my husband Lloyd and I began attending Fletcher UMC in May of 2008 when I was employed as the director of music. It didn't take us long to realize that God had another reason for bringing us to Fletcher UMC. We found a church filled with so much love, and we joined the church within the first year of my music ministry here. We had found a church home. As I began my first day as director of music, I saw that I was going to have to be very creative in the rehearsal and worship space. It was so small. The choir room became my office and storage for the music department, as well as storage for the worship committee. The choir loft was only large enough for 13 people, and the choir was already larger than that. So many changes were made to the chancel area just to be able to have room for the choir and to have room for the handbell choir and all of the handbell choir's equipment. Soon, the church was beginning to dream about what could be, and here we are in this beautiful space. One of my dreams was to have a music suite, and this became the dream of all who participated in the music ministry, and of course Blaine's dream as well. Now, because we have new office space, we have been able to repurpose the old office and library to make the dream of a music suite come true. Now the handbell choir and the chancel choir can rehearse together in the same room. And the handbell choir members have room to ring without hitting each other or hitting the walls. But what's really, really cool about this is that no building fund monies were used in creating this music suite. Kind people gave gifts of money and gifts of labor to create this new suite. I am excited to see what God has in store for Fletcher as we strive to take God's message to the community and beyond. Lloyd and I have felt so much love here, and I know others will feel the love that exists here as well.
Hello, I'm Belinda Winkle. I'm the Director of Christian Education. I came about 3.5 years ago, so I wasn't in on much of the planning for this building, but I get to enjoy the fruits through ministry here. As I look out, I see many people who were involved in Bible school, but for those of you who weren't, you don't know what fun is until you've had 140 Bible school students and all their guides and all their leaders, including our teenagers who are so very important to that ministry, and they're all up here on Friday singing their songs and saying their memory verses and generally celebrating with all those parents and grandparents and guardians and friends who have come. It is truly a glorious time, something we certainly could not do when we were in the chapel. I also think of the Living Last Supper, and I see many of you out there who were involved in that we had here on Maundy Thursday, where we did a recreation of the Last Supper of Jesus. We had a wonderful person to play Jesus. I'm sure you don't know who it was. And added that the congregation was invited at the end to come up and take the seats that the disciples had been in to receive communion, to remind us that we are all his disciples. But the wonderful things about this building extend beyond the sanctuary, and I'd like to build on what Kathy said. Because the music suite now exists, it has opened up other space, and where some of that is still in process, but other spaces are being opened up for expanded ministries and expanded opportunities. I also think of the Christmas event, Advent Christmas event, international in theme that we had last year. We will be repeating that this year, where we invite the community to come in. And our beautiful narthex was filled with all sorts of representations from other countries. We had many, many nativity sets from around the world, and all that would not have been possible in the space before this space was completed. Even our horseshoe outside has been so wonderful. Try to come by for the fall festival. You'll see lots of children and families having a lot of fun, and it's so welcoming to come in to the pumpkin patch and then just continue on into that horseshoe shape. So there's wonderful things happening in this space that God has truly blessed and that He continues to bless. And we thank you for all that you are doing, and I thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. Thank you.
You to find your hymnal, and let's turn to number 383. This is a day of new beginnings, verses 1 through 4.
Hello, I'm Blaine Russell, and I serve as the Director of Music here at Fletcher United Methodist Church.
And I'm Christina Russell. I'm the Director of Youth Ministry, Children's Music, and Technology Coordinator here.
Lots of different hats with that. I came here 6 years ago in 2013, and so I really got to be a part of a lot of the process of this building project, although I know that even though it seems like 2013 was the beginning of this process, I know for those of you who have been in the church longer than I have, that was not even close to the beginning. There was a lot of discussion, a lot of planning, a lot of plans that were then scrapped and redone. I know that this was many, many years in the making, even before 2013 when I arrived here, but I was very grateful to have been a part of it, as was Christina, from 2013 on. And a couple of the really, I just want to touch on a couple of the really important things that I feel like have happened as a result of this new space and expanded opportunities. And one of the things that we really pushed for was as soon as I knew that this building campaign was really going to become a reality, I wanted to be sure that we could make some additions to our wonderful instruments that we already had in our old worship space. We have this wonderful Rogers organ that we've had since 1999, and I knew that it would be a wonderful opportunity, since we were already going to be probably moving it over anyway, to expand it. And so we started to pursue options to add on to the organ. I formed a little committee, and we selected Phil Parkey in Atlanta, Georgia, to do some wonderful pipe work to add to the organ. So we added 5 ranks of pipes, in addition to all the electronic components that we already had. And so, in addition to it, of course, being a wonderfully aesthetically pleasing thing in our sanctuary, it also adds a lot of wonderful new tone colors and things like that to our instrument, an instrument that already sounded wonderful. And so Phil Parkey, our pipe builder, was able to coordinate with his team and also with J.C. Hobbs, who is our kind of main repair person who has done the work on our organ forever and actually helped install it, so he's been doing it ever since we had the organ. And he also coordinated with Alan and Gwen and his team, and they really helped to come up with just an absolutely wonderful product for us to have here in this space to enhance our worship. And I'm thankful to all of you who helped contribute to that financially and in other ways to help make that possible. That is kind of piggybacking on what Kathy was saying about the music suite. That was another element in which we really did not pull from any of the building funds. We received specific donations for that in order to fund the organ. So I'm very grateful for all the people who were already giving to the building project and decided to additionally contribute to the organ. That was really going above and beyond as far as commitment went. And so thank you to all of you who have contributed to that and who are just out there in the pews to enjoy it. That is so much of why we decided to do that. A couple of other things too that I'll touch on really quickly because I know that I can be a little bit long-winded. Our major choral work, Light Shines in the Darkness, that we were able to do on the Sunday after Easter was another wonderful opportunity and something that would not have been possible in our old space. I think about the fact that we were able to put together a very large choir and a septet of strings players, as well as having Jan on the organ, and putting all of that together into such a wonderful musical outpouring. It was such a blessing to be able to do that, and for y'all to be able to come and hear that, and that we hope that it touched you and that it made an impact on you with the words and the music. And then lastly, the artist series that we have been able to start here. As soon as we finished this space, we already had people contacting us wanting to use our space for various events and for concerts and things like that. And so it really was a no-brainer to start an artist series here. And Randy mentioned something to me last fall, really pretty soon after he got here. We decided to get the ball rolling on that. And we started the artist series with Elliot Park, the singer-songwriter who came and did a fundraiser concert for the Calvary Food Pantry. And that was just the beginning. We then hosted the Blue Ridge Ringers Handbell Choir, the Woman's Song, Woman's Chorus of Asheville. And this fall, late fall, in November, we're going to be hosting the Australis Chamber Ensemble. And we are very, very thrilled to be hosting that event as well. And so that's one of those things where we can really look and see how this space is not just a new space for us, but also a new space for our community. As a performance space, as a gathering space for various events. A space of worship can be so many other things, and so I hope that as we continue to grow the artist series that y'all will continue to see just the wonderful new opportunities that we'll have with this. So thank you all.
Piggybacking on what Blaine said, we're also glad to welcome the Fletcher Community Chorus who've moved their rehearsals and their performances here. There are so many ways that this new resource, this new space, already has and will continue to revolutionize the ways we worship God and engage our community, many of which my colleagues and fellow church family members have spoken about already. It's a beautiful thing to marvel at, and it's also a call to action. When Blaine and I arrived at Fletcher UMC, there was a promise, a beautiful vision of what could be. All of this has come to fruition for us, and more, because of the faithfulness of God's people here in this church family. As I was working on the slideshow for today's celebration, I pored over the pictures and newspaper clippings that were collected over the years, and I asked myself, how did you tell the story of 160 plus years in just a few short minutes? What I noticed about this story, our story, is that it's one of persistence and resilience, a strong family who didn't look inward, but outward to the community. A faithful people who thought and planned ahead with gratefulness for the past and an eye to what God's future was for them together. Today we are reminded that this story continues with us. I, for one, feel excited and privileged to be a part of this God's story here, and I hope you are too.
We can compete for space. I came to this church about 17 years ago, and I came recommendation of a neighbor and now friend. She's no longer a neighbor, and I came to choir the same way. I stayed because of music and the children and the youth. During this time, I've experienced a variety of musical instruments. We've gone from trumpets to violins and clarinets and guitars and saxophones and drums, and our music has covered the width and breadth of jazz, four-square note singing, shaped note singing, to Baroque, to country, gospel. A little bit of everything for a little bit of everybody. The Bells have been here, definitely an intergenerational group. The choir, pretty much an intergenerational group. I mean, how many churches do you know that has a choir member who is 90 years old and still has a beautiful voice and uses it when she's able? Gorgeous liturgical dance. This wasn't the first time we had a liturgical dance. We had some over in the other sanctuary also. But it's beautiful, it's movement, it's letting out good feelings. The first time I heard Jan do a double whammy, that's when she's down at the piano and the organ's doing its own thing. Absolutely wonderful. The young people who've been mentored in music, with Nolan Anthony practicing on the piano and helping out Jan when she wasn't here by turning on the automatic aspect of the organ at different times, who has taken his gift of music and ultimately became the organist at Central United Methodist Church in Asheville. This year, after doing his music recitals for his graduation requirements, he is now attending Furman University. Do you remember when Kari and Anna did the call to worship or the preludes a couple of times after they had started taking piano lessons? And that beautiful music that started from there. We've had Talia singing today. We've had other children groups, our teenagers, when they go to camp and they learn these wonderful songs. And let me tell you, the songs they come back with from camp and Wilderness Trail and Hinton, they sure are different from the ones I grew up with. We have kids' music. We don't have kids' choir. We have kids' music. And they learn that they are worship leaders, that they're not just here to do a performance for mom and dad and grandma and grandpa, that they're here and that they are a valued part of the worship service. They get to work with chimes. They get to learn about rhythm. They get to work with tambourines and drums, and they even get to play the boom whackers. And if you haven't heard a boom whacker, I'm sure that will be worked into a worship service at some point. We've had drama with music. Belinda has done an absolutely gorgeous job of drawing in all of the nursery school children into drama presentations, as well as the music that our youth bring to us. The music series, I'm a member of Fletcher Community Chorus, as are other church members here too. Cannot tell you how absolutely delighted we are to have this as a performance space and also to have it as a rehearsal space. The acoustics are so good. Person sitting on the very back row can hear very small nuances of music. I was being, I'd been called for jury duty. And one of the fellow jurors was a music teacher in a high school. And the judge said to him, "That's really good." He says, "You keep doing a good job and keep bringing people, bringing youth and people into learning about music and exploring it." He says, "I have to tell you that I very rarely see anyone standing down here in front of me who has been a part of music and who's had music in their lives." Our pediatrician, when our daughter was little, and that was a long time ago, had said, "You know, people tend to go and stay with the church. Even if they go away from it for a while, they tend to come back to it if they have been brought up in a church that has a good, strong music program. That kids will come back for the music. People will come back for the music. And by osmosis get all the other stuff. But that will be the drawing factor." You've heard lots of little quotes here and there. And one of them is that when you sing, or when you are really listening to music, you're praying twice. And music is what feelings sound like. And from the response that many people brought to Blaine after the special music after Easter, that was made very, very true. So don't give up on the music. We're here.
Hi, I'm Cecilia Mouche. I've been a member of this church since I was probably about 5. I grew up in it, and I'm now about to turn 16 next week. So I'm a very active member of our youth ministry here and all of its different programs that it has. And so when I was little, I remember we used to go to 11 o'clock service, and we'd always show up, and then it would just be full. And so we would have to go sit awkwardly in the overflow section and watch it on the TV and kind of like do this weird like quiet thing where like, are we gonna stand up? Are we not going to? But with the new church, we no longer have to do that. We have plenty of space, plenty of welcoming opportunities to bring people in, and no longer have those awkward moments of, ugh. With the new space comes new instruments that the youth can express themselves with, as we are a very musically inclined group. We have our violins and many other things, and saxophones and whatnot. Specifically want to shout out to our pump organ, Lil Pump, as we like to call it, and obviously the organ and the beautiful piano that we have that we've been able to practice with and sing many songs and have a grand old time. So with the new space again, it just brings more people, it's more welcoming, and with more people comes more children and more youth in our program. I probably wouldn't be friends with some people if our church hadn't expanded and new people had come in, and so I really appreciate the new friendships that I've built and the future ones that I will. So that's it, thank you.
As the debt reduction task force worked, there was a God incident that happened. And I don't know how many folks have noticed it. And Christina, if you want to bring it up. We have a corn plant that grew up in the parking lot. It's back in this first island on that side. And it came as a volunteer. We don't know how it started. And to think about growing out of the base under there, that substrate of all types of hard materials, concrete, asphalt, and then mulch on top of it, but still have the strength and the persistence and power to grow. And it actually grew 4 ears of corn. I took this picture several weeks ago because when I went out to Cane Creek and I saw that they were starting to combine the corn, I knew that it wouldn't make it. It's kind of brown and withered now. Also, Bob Green reminded me of this, that there is also a wonderful thing that every silk in a corn ear is connected to the kernel of corn that is growing. So you have a complete and intimate connection that without one another, it couldn't be completed. And again, that's us working together, as all of these witnesses have talked about, as Kevin gave us the challenge, that marvelous reality that if we just meet our goal, we can get so close to finishing this out. Before we sing our final hymn and go to the fellowship hall for food and conversation, I just wanted to announce to you that our lead donors that have stepped forward, and I'm still waiting to hear the final decision from 2 families. We have matching gifts of $142,000 that will be given to match the rest of our first fruit gifts. So that is almost 1/4 already promised as a great first step. So I invite you now to prepare, find your hymnal number 400, and you will remain seated as Blaine plays one instrumental verse of Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, and then Blaine will direct us on the other verses. Remain seated for the pump organ, and then he will direct you to stand. And all of God's people said, Amen. We invite you to come to the fellowship hall for conversation and food and fellowship. And again, the pledge cards are out in the gathering place or here at the back door. Thank you.